Welcome to the video edition of The Fourth Curtain, featuring this week's interview. Catch the extended audio version with Alex and Aaron's commentary wherever you get your podcasts. On with the show.
Hello, Fourth Curtain listeners, and welcome to this week's show. It's a good one. Today, we're so lucky to have with us Feargus Urquhart. Look at that pronunciation wizard. The CEO and founder of Obsidian Entertainment. Known Feargus, met Feargus. We were trying to figure it out. I think it's probably been decades, which is just a testament to how long Feargus has been around making games. I think. Did you start around like 91?
91.
I think I saw somewhere you had a testing job.
Testing job in 91.
Like in 1991.
Yeah, I saw that too, and I got happy. That's on the wiki.
Year I graduated college and started Bungie.
Yeah, there you go.
This is good. This is a good year. Good year for everyone. Feargus has had his hands in many of the games that you know and love, particularly of the RPG genre, dating all the way back to early Interplay days. So we had Bryen Fargo on, the founder of Interplay, a little while ago. You guys are brothers in arms over at Team Xbox now,
We are.
which is super exciting. And I think now Black Isle was that a publishing label within Interplay?
Yeah, it was like a development division. So it was
Development
exactly.
division.
That's what it was.
Okay. Yeah, and that was your baby, that's my understanding. Where games like Fallout, Planescape, I think you guys published Baldur's Gate. Had your hands in some really formative RPG games back in the day. And then in 2003, and I did the arithmetic here, 22 years ago, started Obsidian with a few other folks to continue building RPG games, and just the run has just been amazing. KOTOR, Fallout, Pillars of Eternity, Outer Worlds. There's a new Outer Worlds coming.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
There's a date for that. Is that in October?
Yep, 29th. I think I have that right. Yeah, it's October 29th.
Okay, I could spend the whole hour just reciting your resume, but that wouldn't be terribly exciting. But it is exciting to get to chat with you. Thank you so much.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot. Happy to do it.
Great to see you. So I made a lot of notes because there's a lot of interesting things in your past. You've worked with a lot of different brands or games, a lot of different companies, different publishers, etc. One thing that I thought was interesting is that I think a lot of the early games for you guys were sequels of other people's games. Is that right?
Yep. Absolutely. It was actually pretty purposeful. I mean, actually early on, it was easier to actually get gigs if you were doing sequels. And it also is a little bit like KOTOR is a great example of where we had worked with BioWare at Black Isle in Interplay. And we'd been friends. We're still friends. Greg Zeschuk was just down here in Southern California a couple weeks ago.
Did he bring you some beer?
He did not bring me any beer. So I actually had very little of his beer. I see him like multiple times a year. And I still have not had, I've had a couple of his beers anyway. Anyway, so we'd worked with them, and it was time for us to kind of mosey on from Black Isle Studios and Interplay. And we were kind of pitching all over the place, and it started to seem, okay, we pitch things that people know we can do. Let's start with that. And then the thing was, well, we know BioWare's technology, and we kind of had heard BioWare was maybe not as interested in doing KOTOR 2 because they, as we all would find out a number of years later, they were working on Mass Effect. And it kind of all came together in a couple phone calls. And so that kind of really solidified this, hey, if we want to sort of get our foot in the door and get to start making games as a studio that's starting in my attic, a good way to do that is with sequels.
That's smart.
Yeah,
that's a strategy.
I think it's a strategy. Is it a tactic or is it a strategy? I never know the difference.
It's a tactic. It's a tactic, I guess. Either way, smart. So that's kind of like how you guys got started. And what was sort of what the origin story.
So how did it all happen?
I mean, I want to talk about Interplay and even earlier than that too. But why don't we start
with
at
Obsidian?
the beginning of Obsidian? Yeah.
So Bryen, I mean, it really kind of, we of course had a great time working at Interplay. And I think we could sort of see the writing on the walls. Bryen had left. I had actually thought about leaving a year before, but I sort of stuck around for a bit. I really wanted to make more Fallout. That's really what was a big thing. I loved working on D&D, but we were starting there was these variety of hits that were happening. Interplay lost the D&D license. That happens when you don't pay your royalties. And I know, yeah. And so, and it just got harder and harder. We had to like make games faster with less people. And it just felt like this is not sustainable. And a lot of us were sort of in our late 20s, early 30s. And we're like, well, if we don't go now, and we're all starting to have kids and buy houses and stuff like that. And it's like, well, if we wait 5 years or 10 years, like, are we even going to ever do it? Right. Like, cause you get this thing of we're like, oh, I have a mortgage now and I have a 6-year-old and whatever. And you just start talking yourself out of things. And so that's really what led to 5 of us going, okay, I think we can do this. And it was me, Chris Parker, Chris Jones, Chris Avalon, and Darren Monahan, and Chris Parker. Did I say Chris Parker? Anyways, there's 3 Chris's and a Darren. And so, which actually that was one of the funny things. We had actually, there was like a debug bot in KOTOR, like a thing you would walk up to get like gold and crap. And we named it 3CDF for 3 Chris's, Darren and Feargus. But yeah, that was it's kind of maybe a little bit of a boring origin story, but we just felt like we could do it. I think in part, we kind of had the idea, and maybe it sounds arrogant. People kind of knew who we were, and we had a thing that we did. We'd met, Alf, the world was a little smaller back then, and kind of everybody really knew each other more than they do now. And I don't know, maybe it was, like I said, maybe it was a little arrogance. We thought we could do it, and it was time to get out of there before we just went down with the ship, and so we jumped.
Yeah. Not arrogant. I think.
Yeah,
do you think though, like, how did those the first couple of years? I gotta imagine any startup that doesn't usually go as planned, even if some things go better or whatever. There are usually some surprises. Like, what kind of surprises did you hit in like the very beginning?
So I think the first thing was like, and I mean, I hate to say it because it makes it, so much of like starting up companies and being successful obviously is incredibly hard work, but then some of it is just luck, and I think it was sort of the right time, and that got us the KOTOR 2 contract. And we, of course, were really good friends with Ray, Greg, and the rest of BioWare. They really helped us get, they sent people down to help us get the engine set up and all that kind of stuff. So that was pretty, that was probably easier than it was for like a vast majority of studios that have ever started up. But definitely in the 2 years, there was because we wanted to get to 2 projects quickly. It was I know that was sort of that wasn't what a lot of developers did, but when I say it was like 3 Chris's, Darren, and Feargus, it ended up being like 3 producers, a programmer, and a designer. And so we were very much project minded, and we'd always been running lots of projects. And so we thought we wanted to get to we wanted to get to 2 projects quickly. So we immediately were like, oh, well, we're doing KOTOR 2. Well, what about Neverwinter Nights 2, right? So we were sort of already talking to Atari, and that was we couldn't get anywhere, right? And so that was hard. And then we actually, we talked to, we were working with gathering of developers, and then that didn't go anywhere. And then we actually finished a contract for a post-apocalyptic PC game with, not Take-Two. I forgot. No, it was Take-Two. With Take-Two. And we literally had this, I signed the contract, faxed it over, and then never got a contract returned. And like 2 weeks later, I'm calling. And then finally they said, oh, well, this person left and we changed our this. And I'm like, but we signed the contract. He's like, yeah.
Well, we did it.
Yeah. So, yes.
Hey, wait a second. That was exact same thing happened to me.
Oh, really?
Well, when so you're talking about gathering of developers, that's Mike Wilson,
and then this was
Taheri.
And then it was Take Two,
but,
and I forgot even who we were talking to at Take Two. Yeah, I don't remember at the time.
Yeah, so Mike went over to Take Two and was helping to get new projects, and so our first Wide Load project, Sub the Zombies, we had signed with Take Two until they decided that they weren't gonna do it.
Yep. Why does that sound super familiar? Well, because all these, it's so funny.
They're a great company, by the way. I don't have any grudges. It was all fine.
You don't have any grudges because you never talked about it. I just found it out right now, and I worked on that game. I didn't even.
I mean, I have a 99% Rotten Tomatoes for Take Two. There you go. 1% speed bump. All right. Well, so that's really interesting, and that's got to be a little bit. That had to be a little.
Well, it was, and it was like
traumatic.
It was traumatic, and it was like, I think what was kind of traumatic. It was like maybe the first contract was a little easier than it should have to get, and then the second contract was we were all over the place, and everything we were like pitching just felt like it was something that made sense that we would do. Like another one was. We were contacted by Ubisoft, and they had that point they had acquired New World, so they had the Might and Magic IP, so they got a hold of us, and we said, "Oh yeah, well we can take the KOTOR engine, right? So that engine, and then we could make a Might and Magic game." And I'm like, chocolate, peanut butter, right? I mean, this would be perfect. But we didn't have it. But the one thing that we had a hard time with, and it was something that we never really did a lot. We never did a lot of flashy demos for games that we could make. We kind of just always relied on, I don't want to spend any money on if you don't like the 5-page concept document, I don't know how a demo is going to make you that much happier. But then Arcane did in the not in Unreal Engine, in the Steam engine. I can't think of the name of it.
Source.
Yeah, Source. In Source, did what would become their Might and Magic game, and so that's Ubisoft went that way. So I guess that was the interesting challenge there in the early days, was really just like we were just kind of bouncing all over the place a little bit from like pitching and pitching and pitching. I mean, we were never in a bad place because we were only ever going to ramp up people onto a second project once we had signed the second project. I guess that's the useful thing of being when you're first starting out. But yeah, I would say that was a little bit of a bouncing around was tough.
What year is this?
That would have 2003, and then 2003 into 2004.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So back in 2003, 2004, you were signing games on a 5-page Word doc.
Maybe.
Well, I think there's something really interesting to learn here about just playing into your strengths. Mm-hmm. I mean, you had like a track record, you had some expertise in a certain area, you had relationships with folks who could provide opportunities. So you sort of put those three together, and that's like path of least resistance, and it kind of worked. Yeah.
Well, I also do wonder when you're pitching games that, like, yes, a demo is awesome to have, right? I mean, to show something, because it then proves, you can go make a thing. But I don't know. I always wonder, though, if when you go in with a PowerPoint and you have a concept document to show people, and it's like, if you haven't gotten their interest at that point, like, it's going to be hard. Like, it's going to be hard to prove to them that this is something that's interesting. And I think what we also, like, a big thing that we also noticed was we sometimes just had pitches to take people to pitch so that they could then tell us what they really wanted us to make. And so, you know what I mean? So it's like, they didn't want to just say, hey, we have this. Are you interested in taking like He-Man, a crossover with Barbie, and do an RPG? Like, they didn't want to come out and just say that. Yeah. I know.
Yeah, you just make that up.
I did just make that up. But yeah. And so, but they would like let us pitch. I'm like, well, that's super interesting. God, that's such a great idea. Well, we've also been kicking around something, right? And then okay, then we could, because we were not. I think one thing as a studio is we wanted to make games and we want to make RPGs. And of course, there was a style of RPG that we wanted to make, but we weren't caught up in it had to be this RPG or that RPG. Like, we'd already made actually a lot of RPGs. And so a lot of it was like, hey, we just like doing this. We have to do it together. And so we sort of sort of looked at there was always a lot of possibilities on the table because we didn't we didn't it didn't have to be ours. I think was that was another big thing about us is it wasn't about everything having to be ours.
So wait, so what to not trying to change. Sorry, we're kind of on a flow, Alex. Please forgive me, but
were you going to break the flow?
I'm going to break the flow because I'm really curious because I'm looking at his wiki and it's like tester. You went straight to CEO in like a year. So I was just.
But listen, the guy, he's a genius. He's selling games on 5 pages of paper.
3 pages.
Of course, he's CEO. 3 pages.
Well, I guess what I'm curious is like there is kind of D&D / RPG like blood here,
absolutely.
like vibe.
Yeah.
So can we go back to baby Feargus?
Sure.
Like this. Does baby Feargus play D&D?
Did you grow up in Edinburgh or somewhere else?
No.
Where'd you grow up?
Weirdly, I can't get my wiki changed because I'm not a Scottish American.
You're not? That's what I told Alex. I was like,
I can't get it changed. And it's like and at this point I've just given up.
Start talking in an accent. You can get away
I can't
with
even
it.
do it. I can't. So my mom is English. So and so that's probably why I can't speak in accents because my dad was from Chicago, my mom's from England. So they're just like weird accents. I don't even hear them. Anyway, so no, I was born in Pittsburgh actually, and and then we lived in Pittsburgh a couple of years, and we lived in Belgium for a couple of years, and then Chicago for a few years. But I've been living in Orange County, California, outside of college since then. So for whatever. Almost 50 years I've been in.
Were you just Chicago like high school years?
No, it was basically from until I was 2 until I was 4, and then Chicago was until I was 7. So I've been in Southern California since I was 7. So so no, it's just been here, and which was very fortuitous. And I think that's to go back to baby Feargus a little bit. No, I started to get into D&D, I would say around, I want to say like 1980, somewhere around there. One of my friends introduced it and me to it, and I really enjoyed it. And there was actually, I think what really helped as well is there was actually a gaming club at my high school. So as I got a little bit older, and every Wednesday after school, we got into one of the classrooms and we played whether it was going to be D&D or Paranoia or Powers of Perils or all these different kind of things, and also got into super into board games as well. Talisman is this sort of crossover RPG like board game. And we were playing it back in 1982 or whenever it originally came out. And so what was the weirdly fortuitous thing is so that I had a friend that I met in the gaming club named Chris Taylor, not Chris Taylor, gas-powered Chris Taylor. And so Chris Taylor, we worked together. So I was, my other job, I've only had 2 jobs. It sounds horrible in my whole thing. Oh, well, 3 jobs if you count Obsidian Interplay differently. So I worked for Dominoes and I made pizzas. Anyway, so then I got a job, 27 seconds. That was my best on a large pepperoni pizza. And so
wait. You can make a pizza in 27 seconds?
Make a large shippable pepperoni pizza in 27 seconds. Yeah.
So you are a producer, huh? Is that what you call it? Is your bag? Do you identify as producer or something?
Well, I've seen how they do the cheese. There's like a little handle that just drops.
No. This was all manual. This was this was from dough patty to basically spoon of the sauce. You had a spoon. You didn't spoon sauce and then cheese. Yeah. You just got really good at the technique of you put your hands like almost like a coal loader into the thing, and then you could go like this, and it spread the cheese really well. Anyway, so I got him a job at Dominoes, and then when he left Dominoes eventually, and he got a job at Interplay in customer service, and then I needed it
as one will do. I guess they were recruiting out of Dominoes.
Exactly.
Ben Brode. Ben Brode, a Second Dinner, Hearthstone. He's got a similar story. He was delivering pizzas to the night crew at Blizzard.
Oh, okay.
To the testers.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how he got a testing job.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. Anyway, so long story short, so he and then he got a job at Interplay, and this was like me and him had been playing Bard's Tale. He played on his Apple, I played on my Commodore 64, and then weirdly enough, 3 miles from where we were playing Bard's Tale was where Bard's Tale was made, right? So, and we didn't know that at the time. And so, it was just this happenstance. He got a job, because that's the whole thing I forgot. He got a job at Interplay because he was in a D&D game with someone from Interplay. And so that's how that's how he's got
small world.
Yeah. And then Chris Taylor, I mean, he's not so much in the industry anymore, but he was the lead. He ended up being the lead designer on the original Fallout, and that's what he did. So
wow,
yeah,
okay, but wow, there's more than I guess. If he's not in the industry anymore, I mean, I guess the gas powered is sort of
this is not gas. This is not gas powered.
I know it's just two different Chris Taylors. That's
there's
crazy.
a third one too, which is as well, which is funny that there's 3 Chris Taylors.
Wow.
Is this the TC? What was it? TC 3D or TC 3? What was the name of the robot again? Is he one of the Chris's?
No, he was not one of the Chris's. No. He was he was off doing other stuff by then.
Okay, so Baby Feargus got introduced to D&D, and that sort of led to meeting Chris Dominoes into Interplay. And you've been working in that RPG genre your whole career.
Pretty much. I mean, early on, I mean, so like obviously when I was testing, I kind of tested all these different stuff. But weirdly, of course, I mean, it's how this all works. I think the first time I was called a lead tester, I think, was on Bard's Tale construction set. And my lead, the developer, the lead programmer, game director, what do you want to call him, was Tim Kane. And so that's how me and Tim got to know each other really well. And Interplay was so small back then. Though with Tim, it was funny because he wasn't full-time at Interplay yet. He was just making it. He was still kind of a grad student at UCI. So I'd have to go to his grad student apartment at UCI to get builds that I could then take back to Interplay and play them.
Wait, sounds like a drug ring.
Huh?
Did you go from high school to Dominoes to Interplay?
So no, that was during the summer. So I was testing during the summer. So I did. So while I did go to college, I did not graduate college, which I always tell the kids nowadays: do not do that. Graduate college. After 5 years, I almost had a degree, but then I got a full-time job offer from Interplay to be a producer, and so then I tried to commute for a quarter because Interplay was in Irvine, and I was going to UCSD in San Diego, and let's just say the commuting didn't work.
Yeah,
it's a very pretty drive.
What were you? It is a nice drive. What were you studying at UCSD?
I was going to be a bioengineer. So
okay,
yeah, it's adjacent.
Yes,
yeah. Aaron and I debate a bunch about like today college.
I hate college.
You don't hate college. Come on, stop it. But it is interesting how, and maybe more in that time period because there was no sort of career track into games. Certainly no game making studies at school. There's a lot of people in the industry who either didn't go to college or has a story similar to you. But I love this sort of the thread here about your relationship with RPG. Particularly beginning with D&D, I often tell young people who are asking me about getting into the craft of game making, I often suggest to go play D&D because of the kind of experience that it gives you an exposure to this really interesting combination of narrative, world building, and systems and system design. But you're like the expert. Would love to hear what attracted you to, why were you playing D&D? Was it just because the other players had the good weed, or was it something else?
I know. It was first off, let's you have to draw the picture right there, paint the picture of I was a nerd, right? I was couple years ahead of math, I was supposed to, I didn't end up doing it, but for 8th grade, I was at junior high and I had to go to high school for the math. And so let's just say I was not the most popular of kids. And then of course that meant that I gravitated to also the not so popular kids. And I think at the time, D&D was something that was very interesting to the not so popular kids. And I loved fantasy. I was reading Lord of the Rings, and actually one of my teachers in junior high introduced me to other kind of sci-fi authors at the time. And I don't know. And it was this idea, which is what we talk about all the time at Obsidian, is just this idea of I could go into these worlds and I could be someone, right? I can be successful. I can go up levels. I can kill dragons, and I was never and this is nothing against people who are like in a game that they play 2 times a week and have done it for 5 years or something like that. Like I was a little bit more casual than that. But it was just this idea. And I think it was also the attraction of the numbers. Sort of this idea of how to define success through numbers, and adding dragons as well, so it was just also the camaraderie. I had to, so around the Baldur's Gate 2 time, so this would have been 2000, and I sort of had a new group of people who were doing PR marketing on Baldur's Gate. And now Baldur's Gate was like Interplay, like, hey, that's cool. That sounds like a cool game. We didn't put much money into it. And of course it did great. And now Baldur's Gate 2 mattered, right? So now there's more people working on it and things like that. And so I had to, the women, and it was 2 marketing women or 2 marketing women and 2 PR women. And they did not play D&D. They didn't really play RPGs. Some of them played games, but not that, there wasn't a lot of people in marketing PR playing games in the 90s. It's just reality, right? And they're like, well, we're going to have you play D&D. And they're like, really? And I'm like, no, we are. We're not going to make you play like for 6 months, but you got to play. So we have to make characters. And I think we only played like 2 or 3 sessions. And by the end of like maybe the second session, they looked at us and goes, so this is really you guys just it's basically you get around, you hang out, drink beer, and screw around. And we're like, yeah. I mean, that's really, we understand this. Yeah, it's awesome, we understand this way more now because they were laughing and they were having fun and it wasn't serious and, it was just, that unified storytelling of a group having fun together. Right. And I think that's what it was. It was camaraderie. It was group. It was, and I think that's what's always drawn to me about RPGs is getting to, do this thing with others.
Right. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. There's also kind of a built-in almost escapism of like you're kind of creating this alternate world where you can do anything and you're probably heroic.
Yeah, that's 100% what we talk about even to this day is we say, hey, not everybody's job in real life is amazing. Like their lives during the workday, and we're very lucky in what we get to do right now, right? And theirs are not that way. They could be, and it's not that, hey, I'm not denigrating anybody that works at McDonald's and cooks fries and flips burgers at all, but they don't have to feel that while they may not hate their job, they probably don't feel they have a lot of control, right? And I think what RPGs and games in general, but I think RPGs in particular, when we make them well, it gives people power. It makes them feel like they can have an effect on these worlds that they're going into, and that's I don't know. That's probably one of the things, the core driving things that's always kept me like super interested in doing what we do.
And rolling dice is
rolling dice is amazing. Yes.
You said a phrase, success through numbers. Yeah. It was that sort of were you kind of like talking about system design and spreadsheets and that kind of thing?
I mean, just this idea that success was defined. In other words, if I get this amount of experience points, I can go up this level and I can now do this damage and I can put on this armor. And it was all this I didn't know at the time, but it was this, we would now call it min-maxing, right? It's like, how do you actually use these systems to be as successful as you can in this world, the way that you want to be successful. And so that's kind of what I meant by that.
Right on.
We'll be right back. If you like what you're hearing, like and follow the show wherever you get your podcasts. And now, a word from our sponsors. Great games aren't just made, they're crafted. Pixel by pixel, idea by idea. Amber doesn't just develop games, Amber forges the future of play, one project at a time. From the magic makers at Disney to the tech giants at Amazon and Warner Media, the biggest names in the industry trust Amber to turn their wildest ideas into reality. Why? Because the talented teams at Amber believe in pushing every boundary, breaking every mold, and having a bit of fun while they're at it. Need a partner who knows the game and plays to win? Amber has the talent, the passion, and a global network that's ready to roll. So let's skip the loading screen and get straight to the action. Discover how Amber can power up your next project at amberstudio.com. Do you want your game to live forever? To supercharge it with immense powers of endless content, a buzzing gamer community, immortality, and coin? CurseForge for Studios, an exclusive service for visionary game developers, allows you to add safe, cross-platform mods to your game and enjoy all the benefits of user-generated content without any of the risks. With CurseForge for Studios, you can harness the creativity of our 165,000 devoted creators and the traffic of 43 million monthly gamers. You can also level up with premium mods and grant your game new revenue streams. Trusted by AAA studios, CurseForge for Studios is an immortality potion for your game. Enter studios.curseforge.com and join the UGC era. Leveling up your game dev career but not sure where to start?
Maybe you're trying to break into the industry, looking to connect with other people who are making games.
Consider joining the International Game Developers Association, the IGDA, the world's largest nonprofit member-driven professional association serving all individuals who create games.
I was in the IGDA in Chicago, met a lot of people. Great way to network.
The IGDA exists to support and empower game developers around the world in achieving fulfilling and sustainable careers.
Discounts,
Educational and advocacy-based resources,
mentorship,
and solidarity across 160 plus chapters.
To join the IGDA, visit igda.org/membership and use the code IGDA 4th Curtain 15, no spaces there,
To get 15% off 1- and 2-year memberships, as well as a student membership.
Joining the IGDA is a great move for your career, and as a nonprofit supporting everyone making games, it's a great move for the whole community. Join today. Hey listeners, it's Alex from the 4th Curtain.
And Darren here. We want to give a quick shout out to the team at High Vibe PR.
High Vibe PR is our boutique communications firm. They're all about companies and brands defining the future of gaming, entertainment, and culture.
Look, when you're doing something big, you need the right people to help you tell your story. And High Vibe PR, they're the best at making it happen.
Absolutely. They've helped us at Look North World level up our messaging, connect to the right audiences, and stay ahead of the curve in this ever-changing industry.
So, if you're looking for a PR partner who gets gaming and entertainment like no one else, check them out at highvibepr.com.
That's highvibepr.com. Go give them a look. You won't regret it.
And now, back to the show.
Okay. One more question about the past before we get a little bit more current, which is just for listeners, if you're not familiar with Interplay, I guess I would put Interplay in the category as sort of one of the what kind of like founding fatherish era companies that had a big impact on the game industry early on. Did some seminal games, etc. Like, what was the vibe there? Like you said when you were there, or at least at some point when you started, it was really small. What was that like working at and you're at Microsoft now, which is the other end of the size spectrum.
Yeah, the other end of it. So the first time I got hired in 91 as a tester, I think I was like employee 33. When I got hired in 96 full time, I think it was like 112. So I had grown a lot in those 2 years, but still pretty small company comparatively. And things like, I think that, I think it's hard for people to probably picture it, but like there was, so I would have been 23. Right. And at the time, I'm pretty sure Bryen's like 7 years older than me. And so he would be 30. There wasn't many people older than 30. Right. So this was being run by people in their mid to late 20s. Right. And in an industry where like we loved games. We were all in. What the hell did we know about making games? I mean, there was, as you were saying before, there was no schools. There was no, the oldest person I could talk to about making games was Bryen, right? And maybe there was someone who was 31 or 32. I don't know, but that was like the extent of it, and.
What about business there?
Yeah. So no, that I think also led to this thing of where we were all figuring it out all the time. right? And when you're all figuring it all out all the time all together, it's just it's fun because you're all bonding all the time. You know what I mean? You're all like, how do you do this? And how did that? Why did that blow up? Right. And I think to that extent, in the environment that Bryen created was one where just, hey, we got to get this game done. Just do it. Go do it. That's it. I mean, he didn't really get involved. I mean, he was involved in the bigger things, but a lot of the other stuff, he was just like, he trusted us. He'd check in with us every once in a while. And we just, I mean, it was like, it's like things now that people in the industry would probably not let someone under 40 be in charge of something. You know what I mean? And I'm being put in charge of it. I mean, here's the crazy thing. So I'm just a producer at 23. And then at 26, they're like, hey, this guy doesn't want to run this whole development division. Do you want to do it? And I'm like, sure. So again, I get put in charge of like 50 people and like 4, maybe 5 remote projects on top of it. So I'm suddenly in charge of 10 projects. I'm in charge of the most important like brand that they have, which is D&D, you know, and I'm 26, didn't graduate college, right? So that was, but it was, I think the kind of people that gravitated to that were all super smart, hardworking people that just wanted to make awesome games.
Right.
Now, speaking to the business, Aaron, you were kind of asking the question there. It was a different world from a business perspective, right? And, you know, I was just actually, they were talking to the CFO that was around there around the same time. His name's Chuck Camps, and we just had breakfast the other day. He said even at the time, what helped the industry and helped Interplay, it was really the many darts theory. Because if it took you, like I don't remember, but let's say the first Baldur's Gate cost $350,000 to make, right? It was probably around there. I know the contract on the second Baldur's Gate was like $550, and then it grew to $1 million or something like that. But Baldur's Gate 2, I mean, everyone in the entire industry would ship Baldur's Gate.
Hold on a second. Yeah, hold on a second. Well, what's the dev budget on Outer Worlds 2?
It's a lot. Let's say
there's probably like 3 more zeros on there, maybe
more than $1 million, right? Okay. So the thing is, and then I was just talking to Bryen like Monday night about this, and we shipped in 2 million units of Baldur's Gate 2, probably at $49.95 in 2000, and it cost $1 million to make the game.
Right.
So, right. You know, I mean, it's why Richard Garriott gets to go into space. You know, I mean, it was the business allowed for failure, right? And it allowed, so that meant when the business allowed for failure, it meant we could try a lot of things, right? And so that's probably why it was different. Now, what I remember though is because the stakes were so low, and you know, and we thought we were making games that people wanted to play. It didn't take a lot of units to break even on those games. So even when something maybe didn't hit, you know, I mean, you needed, I mean, it's so crazy to say nowadays, but you needed like 30,000 units to break even, you know? And, and so, yeah, that was the atmosphere. And not to draw the comparison to today, it's just the stakes are just so much higher. Right. I mean, when I need 5 million, I'm just coming up with a number, right? But when it could be 5 million units to break even, that's a big difference in 30,000. Because then you have to look at, well, how many games sold 5 million units last year? And you're like, oh wow, not a ton, right? So it's a very it changes a lot. But and that's why I don't know. I do, as we all say, sometimes you harken back to the early days, and there was definitely something about those days. And I didn't feel pressure because I mean, particularly when Fallout was shipping and when Baldur's Gates were shipping, there was I mean, it was really like, holy crap, is anybody going to buy them? I mean, hopefully buy them. I mean, we think they're really cool. Hopefully they'll buy them. And people really did. I mean, it was pretty crazy, actually. Yeah. But yeah, no, I do look back and I say, wow, it was. You kind of have to nowadays just not stare into the abyss, right? And just go, I believe in what we're doing and we're going to get there. And there was less abyss staring, I think, back then as compared to now.
Yeah, no, I mean, the unit economics were very different. The scale of the industry was very different. The number of consumers was different. And just like there was one business model, now there's many. There are games now that are popular for 7+ years. That wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
It's in the competitive landscape,
now,
it's like entertainment just in general is all digital and it's all consuming. So yeah, it is very different. But you are still making RPGs, and how has that changed? Like over, let's kind of get back up to maybe more current time. Would really love to hear the story about like how the acquisition by Xbox happened, how that's changed your life, and how you are approaching making RPGs in this new context that's different from maybe back in those early days. But what was that trip? What was the journey like between when Obsidian got started and then I forget when the acquisition was.
It was basically 18? It finalized it right in January of 19. So it was announced in 18 and closed in early, very like right early 19.
So that's a really incredible independent run right there.
Yes,
that's like
15 years.
Plus years.
Yeah, and I mean, and as you know, I mean, when you kind of to sum up that period of time, I mean, highs and lows, right? I mean, that's the independent world, right? It's the highs of doing KOTOR 2 and it shipping successfully and doing very well on it, right? To the lows of making a great game like Alpha Protocol, but not doing having really hard time doing it and then shipping something amazing, but it didn't resonate. Weirdly, it resonates more now than when it came out. Strangely, I mean, we got our first game canceled in early 2006. I think I have my dates right. Yeah, I think it was early 2006. And luckily we're able to roll on to another game at the time. But, it's through, I mean, we probably went through 3 layoffs, and big games canceled. And I'm always very introspective about those things. I was like, how to, of course, the publisher always plays a role, but what did we do wrong? And like, how do we do this better? And those days of like having to tell people they're not going to, they've got a job tomorrow. I mean, it sucks.
That sucks.
It just sucks.
That's what, do you remember any of the things that like when you did that introspection over like a project getting canceled or something like that, like any things that you learned and then tried to do differently after that? So, I mean, that's some really valuable lessonage that is expensive.
Yes.
If you want to share anything,
so
that's super awesome.
I think there's 2 things and they're quite different. I think the first thing is basically, I'm going to call it sounds so like, I don't know, like surgical or something, but it's publisher management. And so we worked for a publisher, so I think we were already pretty good at it, but I realized we needed to be better at it. Like we needed to communicate better. We needed to make sure they understood what we're doing and why we were doing it, how we were doing it. And also recognizing that like the people that we were working with every day that worked at the publisher had 100 other things to do. Like, not that we weren't important and not the project wasn't important, but like generally external products get very, very few people actually working on them at the publisher. And so we're like, okay, how do we make this easy? And so we started with milestones. And what we did is we would turn in a milestone and we would make sure that we dotted every T and crossed, like that there was never a question that we had turned, like everything that was in the milestone list was delivered and it was like clearly labeled. And on top of it, well, we said, okay, we need to make their job easy. So I was an internal, producer, and Bryen would sometimes ask me, well, how did that go? Like, so what we do is then we delivered 3 videos to them. We delivered basically like for multiple like 30, 45 minute, hour long videos that were narrated by people explaining this is what we delivered and this is how we delivered. And that was for the producer. And then we delivered a 5 to 7 minute video that was a little bit like showed kind of funner things, but still talked a little bit about the development, stuff like that. And that was for the VP development. And then we made a 2-minute sizzle piece that they could send off to the CEO or the president whenever they were asked, how's this game going? And
that's super smart.
Yes, and so that helped, right?
That's a lot of extra work, right?
It
there,
is.
though.
We had to add it.
You had to do a little bit of ROI on like, well, okay,
yes.
well, how much time? Who's going to do this? And is it worth? Them
we added an extra producer. So we added an extra producer. So at that time, we said, okay, we're going to have to add at least one more producer who's going to be able to handle all this stuff, because we just noticed, and I don't know if it was just something that was going on as years went on. It was just seemed like the producers on the other side had less time. In some cases, had less experience, and so we kind of had to fill that gap a lot of the time. So that was how we. So publisher management was one big part of it. The second part of it was that it was like we really had to understand the game that we were making, and and we all look. This is just development, right? And I know you know these things, right? It is like, when we hit prototype, when we hit vertical slice, we hit these things, like we have honest conversations, and we then go, okay, how do we scope it? Like, it's just scope. Like, if these feature, like, simple things, like you get to vertical slice, but not all of your area design tools are ready, right? So if you've shipped your vertical slice, but your area design tools aren't all done, well, how can you then start making your levels of the game if not all your areas? Because you're going to have to return to that. Now you could decide to do that, but that's going to cost on the back end. And so we try, I guess, was just more honesty with ourselves about the reality of where we really were in development, and not just letting stuff like, oh, we'll get there, it'll be fine. And none of it was malicious. It just was, you just have to, like, I don't want to say stare at the abyss again, but you have to like stare at yourself in the mirror, be honest, and go, this is where we really are, right? And and then change the game, right? If you got to cut in half, do whatever you need to do, but you got to stay on track. And that was we got better at that. And I think what I would also say early on, it was as we really started on a project, we started to do these meetings where we said, someone would say, oh, we're going to have, I don't know, fire hoses. Great. And then someone, awesome. And then I guess fire hoses are showing up at some point, right? They're like, nope, you're really into fire hoses. Great. You're gonna give us a presentation 2 Tuesdays from now, exactly how fire hoses are gonna work, how they're gonna be able to play in the game. And we made people present these things that they said were going to be in the game. So it was not for the publisher, it's purely for us. And it's funny when and it was 2 parts to it. You're gonna show me why it's cool, how it works, and then you're going to show me in the tools, in the pipelines, how you actually make it. And when we did that, it like really changed how those games got made, because someone got in front of us and it was like 90 steps and they could barely show and it wouldn't work. We're like, dude. They're like, yeah, I know.
not practical.
No scope creep. No scope creep. You have to give a presentation.
That's really interesting. So you basically, if you have an idea and you want to put it in the game, great. Ideas are cheap, but let's actually think about what we're going to get out of this and what's it going to cost.
Yeah, and how does it get into our pipeline? That's the whole thing. Like, it's and of course we break this all the time. I mean, we had like Outer Worlds has this feature disguises that Tim really wanted in the game, and it just kept on sliding out. And he said, but then he felt the game, it was really required for the game. And so we put that feature in super late, after alpha, and then it had to go back in and get retrofitted to all the areas. And I mean, I think he's happy with it. But I think we would, if we got it together and talked about it, I'm wondering if the answer that we all come to is it would have been better to put some stuff that was already supported in the engine, more content that was already supported in the engine into those levels, rather than that whole new feature.
whole new system. Yeah. Classic trade-off. How do you be honest? I know that sounds like a basic, very large question, but really interesting to hear you talk about that. Was kind of an unlock for you, unpacking some challenges you had, I guess, with publishers about, all right, we do a thing and we said we're going to be this far along, and then we did a thing, and now we're going to honestly assess, are we there? Are we not there? Like, how do you keep yourselves honest, not just with yourselves, but then do you end up being just completely transparent with your like your funding partner? I know that there's always this pressure to like not like well, let's not shoot ourselves in the foot here by like saying everything's on fire. You know, like how do you navigate that?
So first off, I mean, if you comment, I'm always very transparent, right? And I go, but there's things you just like, there's sort of elements of the making the sausage that scares people, right? And so like, I also see that as a responsibility because I could completely scare a publisher unnecessarily, right? Because a lot of it is if the job is if I say, hey, I'm going to deliver you a 24-hour sci-fi RPG that looks kind of like Fallout and is in a corporate dystopia or whatever, right? Which is Outer Worlds. And that's my job. Right now, if stuff is going sideways, I have to change certain things. And okay, we're not going to have 9 armors, we're going to have 8 armors. But me as an RPG maker knows that 8 armors is fine, right? So I try to keep the eye on what we're supposed to deliver. If we cannot deliver, when I feel we can't deliver the thing that we said we're going to, that's where you have to have the conversation, right? And it's crappy because that you could get canceled, right? And but I don't know. I almost want to get canceled early rather than later. Just because I've ramped up more, we put more time in it. That's now useless because all this stuff is now we can't use and things like that. So I guess that's how. I guess we were always probably pretty honest with our publishers. I think internally, it just goes with the, again, you make people show it to you, right? And I have to take this from Todd Vaughn from Bethesda. He told me years and years ago, I think when we were first starting to work on Fallout New Vegas, it's been like 2008. I think we were sitting at a cheesecake factory and we were talking about development and stuff. And
as one does.
But there's a cheesecake factory right across the street from us, so that's partly why. That's mostly why there's a lot of cheesecake factory stories. But he said where he had gotten to with the teams was if it's not on screen, it doesn't exist. Like if you cannot show me and I can't touch it and feel it and use the controller, it doesn't exist. You can create the base theater of the mind and wonderful design documents and concepts, but if it is not on screen and I can't touch and feel it, it does not exist. And so when you get into that mode and you make people present and you say, show it to me. Like for real, like what this is not and then you start getting lots of words and lots of this and lots of that. I think that's how when we do that, and I'm not saying we're perfect at it because we're not, but when we do that, that's, I think, when we're at our best.
Yeah.
Lots of words. It'll be really cool. Trust me.
All right. Well, so somewhere in there, we didn't actually get to how
acquisition stuff.
You got. Yeah, how you got connected, attached, acquired by Microsoft. Those are usually interesting stories. Is it interesting?
So it kind of all starts with Noah Musler, who was biz dev at Sega, and then he was biz dev at Microsoft. And Noah had the distinction of signing 2 of our biggest games that then got canceled. So.
He's your best buddy.
I think Noah felt he owed it to us. No, I mean, but more realistically. So I've been friends with Noah for a long time, and he knew we were a solid developer. And well, I know that I'm not ever supposed to say this. Don't worry, Alicia Shiley, it's fine. Is that Matt Goody always wanted to say there wasn't a list. There was a list of developers they wanted to look at, but there wasn't like a list of an exact checklist of the type of that they would, if you have these 8 check marks, then we would definitely consider acquiring you. I think in the end, the acquisition was based upon. So to ask some people ask why were we interested in being acquired? A lot of it was because we wanted to continue to make big RPGs, and now where we're getting into the pitching $50, $60, $70 million games, it doesn't matter how big the publishers out there, they only have so many slots to do 50, 60, 70 plus $1 million games. And this was, back in 18, 19. So we had to seriously look at okay, because when we need a game is not necessarily when they have a slot. And so it's going to be challenging. So we either have to completely change. We just have to go back to figuring out how to get, basically crowdfunded Pillars of Eternity style games, which are amazing. And I mean, that those games helped us like you wouldn't believe. And, but to do the bigger ones, no, it was going to be hard. So we started to really look at acquisitions, and we probably seriously talked to 4 different companies. And then kind of Microsoft came a little bit later into that, and it was all because of E3. And I always remember I was talking to Noah, and he goes, "You guys got something to pitch, right?" Oh, yeah. He's like, "Okay, we're gonna have breakfast. You're gonna pitch me, and then we're gonna figure out what we do with it." I'm like, "Okay." So I pitched him at breakfast. He said, "All right, you need a bigger room." And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." So then we went to the JW Marriott. We got a bigger room. He got like 18 people in the room. I'm making that number up. It was 15 plus, right? And I'm like, crap, I have a PowerPoint. There's 15 people. This is just not going to work. And so I kind of said, you know what, everybody, I'm not going to play the PowerPoint. I'm just going to tell you what we want to do and how we're going to do it. And I just talked to them for like half an hour. And I'd done that pitch like 20 times already. So I was already very in the flow. But they really appreciated everything we're talking about. And then in the end, we really, I know there's no Matt Booty checklist, but they were looking for studios that had been around, that had continuity of ownership, that there were owners that were going to want to stay and continue to make it. They were known for something, and were of a certain size, right? And we kind of checked all those boxes, and that led pretty quickly to a lunch with me, Matt Booty, Noah, and Mary McGuane, who's my boss now, and it felt good questions, good this, and then it went really pretty fast from there. I mean, it was from first conversation to closing 6 months, and so they were, once they got into the shoot, it went really well. So and in the end, it was like, I mean, we of course had a lot of conversations about it, and people were worried about it. But I will say what Matt said in that first meeting about how he wanted it all to work and how we were allowed to do, has stayed that way from that first meeting in like the first week of July in 2018.
Yeah. Yeah, what an incredible studio system exists there now. It boggles the mind. Somebody had sent me a link to the chart, the studio chart,
yes.
And you just look at like all the teams, all the games, the brands, everything, and it's incredible.
It is crazy.
It is really.
It's a really good reason to get Game Pass too.
And I didn't have to even pay you to say that.
You could, if you wanted to, you could. It is true though. Pillars. You mentioned Pillars, and it was that one of the titles that was actually canceled that you then took to Kickstarter? Is that how that worked, or no?
No. So
did I read that wrong?
No. We were actually working. It was actually a game called Stormlands, and it was a third-person action RPG that we were working on, and we got that all. We got signed up with Microsoft, and unfortunately, things kind of moved around. We moved producers, and it just sort of like. While it had a huge amount of traction while we were pitching it, it was one of those weird things of where we were going through the pitching and signing process probably for about 6 months, and everybody was on board and everything was going great. Then it got moved to a different executive producer like a month after we signed, and then it was canceled 3 months later. It was just weird, right? Because they ended up paying for all of the pre-production we had done during the 6 months, basically, because they're like, we're like, well, you're going to pay for the work we've already done, which they did, and so yeah, it was disappointing. Now, on the flip side, as you brought up Pillars, that getting canceled led to us. It was when the studio got down to its lowest headcount. God, I don't even know when. I mean, I would say would have been in 2012, early 2012, and we probably had more headcount in 2007, right? So we were down to like 72 people or something like that, and Josh Sawyer and Adam Brennecke and some people came and just said, hey, we got to do this Kickstarter thing, and we did, right? And we made over, close, I forgot, 4.4 million or something on.
You guys broke the record
at the time. Yes. Yeah. And we,
that's just like the Kickstarter we did, Aaron, for the podcast. You remember that?
Close.
Yeah.
I remember when that Kickstarter came out, Everyone was talking about it in the studio. I remember.
Yeah, and we delivered. I think that's the important thing.
So good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, I remember when there was this. One day I was sitting at Dice and I was sort of quarantining myself because I got pink eye freaking in Vegas. I'd never had pink eye before, so I'm sitting at this bar away from people, and I hear and I'm supposed to. I'm going to do actually a talk next that I was asked last minute to do. And there's these two guys talking, and they're like, "Yeah, I think we're going to go to Feargus's thing, and there's no way they're going to get that game to make that game for what they got. That's ridiculous." And like, and it turned out to be Jay Wilson, who was running Diablo 3 at the time, and so and it's funny because from there, because I said to them, I looked at them, I said, "Hey." And they looked at me like, "Oh, it's Feargus." And I said, "Really?" I go, "We actually can make it for that amount. I mean, we've gotten more money since the Kickstarter, right? From people still buying. And so we have set that the budget and we're going to do it." Okay, we believe you. Which was great in some ways because now, I mean, that's what I didn't know Jay before that point. And now we're good friends. So, but yeah, so the Kickstarter would not have happened if we had not had that cancellation. And that led to us having our own IP, getting to make Pillars 2 and so forth and so on. So there's always this, you don't know what, something bad happens, but then it opens up something amazing.
Yeah. So I mean, so you started by basically doing sequels, other people's games, and you made the comment about how you guys aren't precious about the content. It doesn't have to be yours, but then you did Pillars of Eternity and it was very successful, and it is your game. Like that must have been a little different. It
was. I mean, I live, I think, like you do, in this world of half my brain is creative and then the half my brain is business, right? And I have I'm constantly doing this stuff. And like the first thing I would say is when we were able to have our own IP, it meant that now our business was worth more. We owned something and things like that. But on the flip side, it was exciting because it was now we were going to be able to make a sequel of our own thing, which never had happened. We kept on it got to be weird for us. Do people I feel we do good work for people, but we never worked with a publisher twice. And it was not LucasArts was happy with KOTOR 2, right? But they were not convinced we could make KOTOR 3, right? And so, because it was going to have to be new technology, and I think it was going to have to be on the 360, and they were worried about that. And we worked with Atari and Neverwinter Nights 2, but they didn't want to do Neverwinter Nights 3 at the time. And so we kind of kept on Fallout New Vegas. We kind of knew going in there wasn't going to be a Fallout New Vegas 2. We knew that was just a Planets of Alignment thing. We had hoped to do South Park 2, right? That ended up being, Fractured But Whole, but that wasn't that we didn't even because one of the at the time it didn't even sound like Matt and Trey wanted to make something else, but they kind of changed their mind, which they're super creative. And I think when Trey has an idea, that's when hey, now let's do this, right? And so, but yeah, that was the weird thing for us is we didn't get to make any sequels of any of our own things until Pillars of Eternity 2.
Very interesting. How do you guys make an RPG? You've made many.
Right.
If you're starting a new one,
right.
And I don't mean the 178 page version, but just philosophically,
So I think
where do you start?
So we start with obviously there has to be a combination of something that's interesting to us that we feel will have space. With gamers, right? That's not something that's being overused right now, or it's something that will resonate with them. And Outer Worlds is a good example. We kind of were bouncing around. Do we want to make a fantasy game? Do we want to make another spy game? Do we want to do this? Want to do that? And now that was sort of came about also because Tim Kaine was working for us, and then Leonard Boyarsky, two of the three guys that really created Fallout. Leonard was at Blizzard and he kind of wanted to get out of Blizzard and they wanted to do something together. And that all came down to, so that first thing of it's even in, I just wrote the new template for concepts. And, the first thing is I always say it's the elevator pitch of, and the elevator pitch for Outer Worlds was Fallout meets Firefly, right? So now you could pick that apart and say, well, the game is nowhere Fallout meets Firefly. But if you kind of squint, there's definitely aspects of it. And so I think where we start, I think, like anybody, really is that, can we say it in a few words, like for real? Like Grounded, not an RPG, but it was basically, hey, let's do a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids survival game. Okay, get it. Like I can now picture that, right, in a backyard, or and so we start there, and then because we've made these things for so long, we just start asking ourselves, like, we probably go then 2-3 steps down, like, okay, is it open world? Is it going to be regions? Are we talking about a class-based system? Are we talking about just an ability-based system? Like, and we start like, and what kind of story do we feel like fits within that? And like, what tech are we going to use? I mean, we have a lot of our own tech that just is for making RPGs, but and so we just, I don't know. We start there, and we just we started very at the high of the triangle, and then we just start keeping down. But I would say maybe the difference, I don't know. We never really talked to other people about exactly how they figure it out themselves, but we go to scope really fast. We go to, what are we talking about? Is it going to be 4 classes? Is it going to be 12 classes? Are it going to be elves and dwarves? Like, do we, because because it then quickly has to get to, well, how many people and what's the budget and I think for us, we do this like top down, bottom up at this like simultaneous thing. So if like, let's talk about whether doors have traps, like, or what galaxy is it going to be in, right? And so we're like doing the same, we're doing that at the, like, simultaneously. And then of course, then we start having other people like okay, you write more of a story treatment, and what are the main characters? And I think Chris Avallone always did an amazing job of like, he didn't go off and write 50-page story documents. He really focused on the characters, like on the NPCs and the companions. And he would go and he would like spend days in Google in searching the web for the actor and the picture and then the voice and because for him it was always, that is what would help people get it. Like if you can picture the person and you can see this concept art that I've kind of smeared together, and then I can give you a vocal track and say, and then I can tell you their backstory. Like, oh, I get it. And then that's another puzzle piece in all of it. And so, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't even that helps, but I mean, that's kind of the, that's the,
well, the place where you guys start at the high concept, which is just really understandable, I think is super interesting and important. Mm-hmm. That's like vision setting.
Yes, it's hard.
And there's so much about what we do that's really complicated, mm-hmm. And a big part of the trick is making the things that are complicated seem simple.
Yep. Yeah. And when you have 150 people now working on a game, like, so we have like 100 and we have a lot of people working on our worlds too right now. And like, you have to have the core things really be they have to be simple enough for everybody to truly understand it. And then you have to repeat and say it over and over and over again. Like, to the extent of like, you ask anybody who was on the Outer Worlds 1 team, you ask them, hey, what's our elevator pitch? And they could all say Fallout meets Firefly. Right. And I think that's the other thing. We as with every studio, we're good at doing things sometimes and not others. But one of the things we try to do with the teams is like, we repitch the game to the team every period of time, right? So that we're like, okay, we're going to talk through it again. Like, I'm going to pitch you the game again that you're working on, right? And just to help people like remember, oh yes, that is the core of what we're trying to accomplish.
Do your guys like designs stay fairly consistent from pre-pro to delivery, or do they often take crazy right turns as you go?
I would say fairly consistent. And I think a part of that really has to do with, traditionally being an independent developer, we had one budget. Yeah, we're going to get a little bit more money probably, but like, you have to like stick with things, and that's what's going to ship. Like we've had some more recent games sometimes where, because there's just a little less pressure, right, to we're not going to get fired. Like this, we're not going to get our contract canceled if we're 1 day late on a milestone or something like that. So there's a little less pressure.
You have some
Correct.
flexibility because you're part of a larger organization. It's got a really big slate.
And so we had to work through that, right? And we had to work through that, like, okay, that's nice, but that doesn't mean we don't get crap done. And it, it led to a little bit to this idea of like, look, not every quest in an RPG is going to be amazing, but people kind of wanted to be precious about every single quest. And so we got into this sort of this point in time, we were just kind of like circling. And everyone's like, well, we're iterating. That's what we're supposed to do. Game design is to iterate. And I'm like, yeah, but you can't iterate on every single thing all the time. And so we're just, you got to, I think I was one of my poor moments. I said, look, we're going to ship bad quests. Just deal with it. Right. No, but of course we always make them better right at the end and things like that. But not everyone's going to be amazing. The goal is to get the game done, right? And get a great game done. And if you can't move forward because you're constantly doing this, like, then you're not learning. Like, you're not getting forward and moving forward. And so that was a big part of where we used to be and we've gotten back to now. I try to say that they'll all say, if you ask, what is this? What is one of the stupid things that Feargus says? I say perfect is the enemy of the good a lot because you can't perfect.
Benjamin Franklin? Is that a Benjamin Franklin quote?
I don't, I probably is. And I think that's, and I just try to.
I say, I'm a woodworker. I say that all the time. Too.
Exactly. So.
As long as I keep all the fingers.
Yes.
but I know what you mean. You could perfect yourself to death, and it's like there's a huge value to shipping. And it sounds like that's been part of the culture since the beginning is let's get it done.
Let's get it done.
And I love that. Awesome. Feargus, we've kept you a little long.
That was good.
I have one more thing I'm curious about, which is like the world in which we are living in today is very different than the world in which you and I got into this industry many years ago. There are a lot of things that are amazing, and there's a lot of things that are challenging. And as you think about the next act for you, like what are you really excited about? Like what, like that's the positive version of that question.
No, that's so the thing is because I'm laughing because it's making more RPGs, and so like it sounds so dumb, but like it really is like and it's thinking about how we do that. Like it's how do we make this person feel like they're more in this world? How do we make this world feel more alive? How do we feel like they have more agency? How do we make them feel like they're the king or the devil or whatever it is that we're trying to do? How do we make it like just the people in this world feel more natural and are interacting more naturally and all these things. And that's where I'm on all the time. Like that's where we are. It's like, how do we do this? Because I think that's, if there's anything I would ever want to give advice to younger game developers is to say, this is a career. It is not this game, right? And that doesn't mean you shouldn't work hard on what you're doing right now, but you're going to get to make another game and another game and another game. And so just look at this as a path, and this is just one step on that path, and then get excited about what that next thing is going to be. And that's what I do. I mean, it's hard to do this job at our level for as long as a lot of us have done it, to not have to have that positive view and think of it that way.
It's taken me a long time to come to that POV, Feargus, but I think it's absolutely true. It's a long game. It is a career. You're going to have wins. You're going to have misses. And you can't live or die on the one thing that you're doing today.
100% not.
But you always got to do your
absolutely
best and try to find the fun, the amazing, all that. But always be learning. I think that's great advice.
Cool.
Do you think AI is going to be? You're talking about like building worlds and believable characters and NPCs and stuff. Are you thinking about AI?
Yeah. So I listened to the AI Daily Breakdown, I think is the name of the podcast. I listen to it. It's every day. It's every 4 or 5 days a week. And I probably listen to it 2 or 3 days. And like the one this morning was about, so Google released Genie 3, which is where you can type words and it will create a world, a 3D world in essence that you can walk around with, and it will stay consistent for like 2 minutes. In other words, like the tree that you look at, if you turn away and look back at the tree, it will be the tree that was there before. And it does it at like 720p or something like that. So I do think that is, I do think that's super interesting. I think I like to use, we've been looking at a lot with AI is just using it for validation. So obviously when we're going out from creating areas and characters and stuff, like there's so many things we want to accomplish with them. And we have all these sort of like design things we want to do. Like, well, let's use AI to verify all this, like, so are we actually, we say we want this level of reactivity across the game with all these characters. Hey, AI, look at all our design documents. Did we actually say that without, me or someone else having to like go line by line by line by line at every single thing? I get where I get into, I feel like, of course, I can go into ChatGPT or any of the other ones, and I can go, hey, write me a 3,000 word sci-fi adventure about, burger flipping androids, right? And it can do it, and it can do it kind of competently, right? And it's not that it's uninteresting, but I just think I'm a big believer that the creativity is going to come from people, right? And they're the ones who have to write that prompt. They are the ones that like are going to put things together that are just different, right? And not that the AI is closer to people than, of course, machine learning was however long ago. But I don't know. I look at it as a helper in the end. That's what it is. And are we going to use it for more and more things? Of course. But it is always going to be a tool. It's like Photoshop, I think that's the words from the esteemed Matt Booty the other day. But yeah, so it is a tool, right? And when I listen to a lot of people that are kind of in AI every day, that's kind of how they're looking at it too.
Yeah.
Till they start making AIs that are CEOs.
Most CEOs are most CEOs are tools anyway.
Well done. Well done.
You said it.
You said it.
Not Phil though. He's awesome. All right. Fergus, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for spending an afternoon with us. It was so great to get a chance to chat again after so many years. And you're down here. I'm in SoCal too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Hang out.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Yeah.
You also play D&D together.
Yeah. I'm working on an RPG. I'll come and show it to you.
I'd be happy to see it. I mean, you have to, sign a 7-page document, but it doesn't matter. It'll be fine. I'm just kidding.
I'll have my AI read your document and tell me if I should sign it.
I'll have my AI respond.
Yeah. Right on. All right. Cheers. We shall see you around.
Thank you.
Cheers first. Nice meeting you. Cheers.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to the Fourth Curtain Podcast. Visit us at thefourthcurtain.com to find our monthly newsletter and support the show via Patreon. The Fourth Curtain Podcast is a production of Fourth Curtain Media. Lovingly edited by Bryen Hensley of Noise Floor Sound Solutions. Video production by Sarkis Grigorian. Production support by Kimya Taheri. With community management by Doug Zartman and art production by Paul Russell. Thanks again for listening.